I'm going to get straight to the point here. I've seen some shit at work that I don't think was of this earth. The first thing I think I should do is introduce myself. I'm Bill, a 20-year-old McDonald's manager working out of a small suburb in rural Sydney, Australia. I've been working here for roughly 6 years now, a manager for almost 2. They've been uneventful, boring years. The monotony of the job has the phrase, "Hi, may I take your order please?" robotic in nature. An order taking itself has gotten to the point that by the time the car is driven from the initial order point to my window, I have no recollection of the details of the order. It's in the drive-thru that my ordeal takes place. As a matter of fact, I've yet to go to the US, so I can't compare drive-thrus. Though from what I've heard, it's a single lane that stretches around the outside of a building, with an order point, a cashier, and a third where the food is actually handed out. This is the basic structure that ours conform to. However, where it differs from most is that there are 2 lanes rather than 1 at the order taking point. Essentially, provided there are 2 staff available to take orders, we can take twice as many orders in the same amount of time. This system is far more cumbersome and slow for some customers. However, unless the actual sensors are calibrated correctly, as well as working security cameras, some cars are simply ignored by the system, while other customers in the other lane are served first. So many explanation over, I'll elaborate as to the creepy shit that occurred just last night. As I've already stated, I manage the night shift on Friday and Saturday nights. What this involves is myself and another crew member catering to the whole store's needs from 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. From serving in the drive-thru to food production to even serving on a counter once it reopens at 5 a.m. Provided the crew member I'm provided is experienced, the night shifts tend to go off without a hitch. Last night, however, is where trouble started. The first thing that initially went wrong was the failure of my crew member to show up. 10:30 is the official start time of crew people. Managers typically half an hour before as to ensure that the previous crew had done their jobs and left the store in an acceptable condition. When it crept around to 11 p.m. and my crew member hadn't yet turned up, I sighed inwardly, picked up the phone and dialed his number. I was counting on him to show up. An issue with rosters has caused all of my other crew to finish at 11 p.m. instead of 1 or 2 at midnight. Ring, ring, nothing. There was no answer. Resigning myself to a long and lonesome night, I started to turn around and prep the store when I was startled out of my wits by the phone ringing again. I eagerly picked it up, answering with the standard, "Hi, thanks for calling McDonald's, William speaking." I gave a few seconds, hoping to hear the voice of the crew member that hadn't arrived, apologizing for their tardiness. A few more seconds of silence, then suddenly, click. The phone went dead. Now when I say dead, I mean dead. The handset died, as did the dial. I couldn't even get a tone out of the thing. I grabbed my mobile, intending to call the head manager and warn them about the dead phone and truant crew member. No signal. This night was only going to get better. Annoyed by the circumstances, plus the fact that I'll probably be blamed for the broken phone and missing member, I bid farewell to the last closer off at 11 p.m. and shut the front doors. The way our McDonald's work is this: a dual lane drive-thru open 24 hours, with the front counter only open from 5 a.m. till midnight. For small term shifts like weekday overnights, a sole manager is typically allowed to run the store by himself if the secondary staff member can't make their shift or there's a conflict of rosters. For the next 5 hours until the cafe crew arrived at 4 a.m. in time for the breakfast rush, I would be alone. Decidedly going about my work with a monotony that would be more suited to paint drying than a shift manager, I spent the first 2 or 3 hours relatively at ease. I was lucky, in fact, that the first 5 or 6 cars that came through were drunk and understanding, only after sundaes or frozen drinks. I had just finished my bun stock and stock check for the next morning when I ducked outside in a coral where the spare bun trays and dumpsters were kept for a cigarette. Just as I'd brought the lighter to my lips, beep beep, my headset beeped twice, indicating a car entering and waiting to order in the second lane. I cursed my bad luck. First an absence, then a broken phone, and now this? I ducked inside and headed to the order taker box. "Hi, may I take your order?" I stopped mid-sentence as I glanced up at the security feed and saw nothing. There was no car in either lane. I looked further up at the sensor that told us what car was at what window, with a resounding negative to the concept that there was no car in the drive-thru. Both screens showed up blank. Both said no cars available. I shrugged and moved out of the box, writing up the issue to outdated tech and computer error. When it happened again, beep beep. Knowing that I had definitely heard it this time, I jumped back into the box, not even looking up when I uttered the famous phrase, "Hi, may I take your order, please?" Silence. Again suspecting another computer error, I looked up. What I saw made me start. There was a woman standing in the second lane, the one furthest away from the building. She had her back to the security camera and was standing half facing the speaker box, half away, dressed in what appeared to be a short white dress. I assumed she had just come from the bar down the road. We get a lot of walkthroughs who we can't serve due to store policy. While the sensor that indicated a car presence still did not show any signs, the beeper was based on motion detection. Assuming it was just a drunk customer, I gathered myself and spoke through the speaker. "I'm sorry, madam, but we can't serve customers on foot through the drive-thru due to health and safety hazards. You have to be in the car in order to place an order." Silence. The woman just stood there with her back to the camera. At this point, I was starting to get annoyed. The last thing I needed was a customer just fucking with my night and the drive-thru lane. As I readied to repeat myself, I stopped, my hand halfway to the button that would allow me to speak to her. She was crying. At least I think she was. She still stood with her back to me, but her shoulders were shaking? No, that's not the right word. Her shoulders were rolling back and forth, as if they were pistons rolling in their sockets. Her long hair, which fell down to the small of her back, shook back and forth. With the exception of her shoulders, she stood remarkably still. While odd, I've seen some crazies come and go. I chalked it up to an alcoholic bender, so I repeated myself. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the drive-thru is for vehicles only. We can't take your order at this time." I switched my microphone off and waited for a response. When I realized nothing was forthcoming, I sighed and left the box. An approaching car would no doubt make her move. Now, there's one feature of the drive-thru I haven't yet highlighted, and it's to do with the speaker box. When a car pulls up, not only does the beeping occur, but the receiver inside the speaker box activates. As a result, I can always hear whatever a car is saying, but unless I activate the microphone, they won't hear me. It essentially acts as a one-way radio. Now, when this woman at 3 in the morning came through to my window and I asked her to move, she hadn't made a sound. After my aforementioned second attempt at moving her and my resulting giving up, my microphone was switched off, but I could still hear her. Seeing as she had remained silent, I went about my business, writing up a memo for the head manager as to the stock levels when I heard it. Snap. The crack of static had scared me out of my wits. I looked up at the security feed. She was still there, except this time, This time she was bent towards the order box. As I reached up to ask her to leave, a cold chill went down my back. Through the soft static in my headset, I could hear whispering. Her lank hair fell about her face in curls. The bedraggled white gown she wore was stained and cut in several places. But her mouth wasn't moving. There she was facing the camera, while this whispering crept through my thoughts. It was soft, unintelligible, but the sound of it made me want to scream and run. Gathering myself, I want to say I spoke with authority, but it probably came out shakier than a Campbelltown train.
Ma'am, are you okay?
The whispering continued, though now I could hear the words, and that was the worst part. It wasn't a demonic muttering or death threats. It might even be easier that way. It was simply a voice, my voice, repeated over and over and over again. It kept varying in pitch, starting in a little girl's voice and ending in a deep baritone. As if whatever the voice belonged to couldn't decide what it was or what it wanted to replicate. Repeating the words over and over.
Ma'am, are you okay? Ma'am, are you okay?
Ma'am, are you okay?
I couldn't help it. I locked myself in the office. Fuck any customers that drove through. Fuck any workers showing up. I wasn't leaving for any reason. There's only one problem. Earlier, when I was taking the drunk cars, we were so busy that I'd left the window closed but unlocked. I don't remember the next part. All I remember is the fear that gripped me as time dragged on with broken fingers. I found the following notes the next day, scribbled in my personal section of the manager's notes diary. 3:15 a.m. I heard the window slide open. The security feed doesn't cover the hallway between the box and the office. 3:30 a.m. I can hear footsteps, agonizingly heavy, dragging every second beat. I still can't find her on the monitor. 3:45 a.m. I have 5 more minutes until the open crew arrive. The footsteps have stopped, if only for one reason. The manager's office has a glass pane in the door. She's standing on the other side. I know. I can hear the whispering. I haven't seen her face. I don't want to. Why is she here? Please, leave. Why my voice? It's in my head, twisting in my thoughts. It won't stop. Please, incessant, over and over. Okay, ma'am. 3:50 a.m. I can see the opener's cars arriving on the car park feed. They're outside on the patio. I'm so relieved this nightmare is over, and by instinct I look up. She's still there. She's smiling. That's the only recollection I have of the time I spent in the office. My amnesia was broken by the arrival of the cafe crew knocking on the door. Apart from a few strange looks, they didn't seem to have any concerns. There wasn't no mention of any woman, no trace of her presence. The drive-thru order taker window was locked when I approached it. I don't know what's happened. I don't know who she was. The security tapes just show static between 3 and 4 a.m., with the static stopping with the door being opened by the cafe crew. There are a few short frames of me cowering in the office around in the corner, apparently scared for my life, before unbending and opening the door following their arrival. I can't have anyone know about this. The pages from the manager books have been removed. I can't have anyone think I'm crazy and subsequently jeopardize my job security. As far as I can tell, the other crew just think I dozed off for a few minutes in the office. It happens more often than you think to an overnight crew. One of those things that are overlooked provided you finish your jobs and reset the registers. But as I look at the roster for next week, my heart can't help but fill with dread as I read the small bar. Wednesday, William overnight.